The Screaming 20s are well on their way, but as video games are pretty cool, let's talk about those instead. It's safe to say that Battlefield 2042 was a wide disappointment for longtime fans and newer players alike, and this is coming from someone who's put nearly 60 hours into the game. The current player base has dropped below 4,000 people, which reflects a staggering 96% decrease since release, with more players getting around Battlefield 5 as of time of writing. To make matters worse, over 215,000 players have petitioned to get their money back, stating the game was, quote, a mockery of every customer who purchased the video game for $70 due to EA's false advertising. Following player backlash, EA would publicly admit that the game failed to meet expectations, with its poor reception being attributed to problems with the Frostbite engine, which wasted around 18 months of development time, and the company being blindsided by the surprise release of Halo Infinite's multiplayer, which released just 4 days before launch. It's unfortunate that Electronic Arts took so long to remember that they had the one and only Vince Zampella on their payroll, who they have now put in charge of the entire Battlefield franchise. Mr. Zampella is best known for co-creating Medal of Honor, Call of Duty, Titanfall, and Apex Legends, meaning at this point, he's pretty much shooter Jesus. It's unclear how long it might take to get the Battlefield franchise back on track, but giving Vince Zampella a blank check and full creative control is a pretty good start. Easily the biggest news for this month goes to Sony's acquisition of Bungie for a whole $3.6 billion. Would this have happened a few months ago, the deal would be the 5th biggest video game acquisition. However, following last month's shopping spree by both Take-Two Interactive and Microsoft, Sony is going to have to settle for 7th place. Sony has thus far made it clear that they don't intend to make any games within the studio platform exclusive, and analysts have suggested that this deal might have been a rushed decision in response to Microsoft's Activision Blizzard deal in January. Many have suggested that the acquisition price was too high, as it's a whole $1.1 billion more expensive than Microsoft's purchase of Minecraft, which is currently the highest selling video game of all time. It's speculated that this acquisition is to better compete with Microsoft's rapidly growing Game Pass library, as the company gains a decisive lead in the games as a service business model that the industry is in the process of pivoting toward. Sony has come to the realization that although big budget single player games can generate Game of the Year awards like no tomorrow, they very often can't compete revenue wise with the games as a service business model. Picking up Bungie not only gives Sony arguably the entire MMO shooter market, but also one of the most talented development teams in the industry, which in itself has a lot of intangible value, which can be difficult to measure. It's currently unclear what this means for Destiny players, and whether Sony will adjust the often criticized monetization structure of the title, but that question itself is half the fun of acquisitions this big. Meanwhile, Netflix announces a BioShock movie. The Halo TV show has already been renewed for a 2nd season, and Lost Ark has become the 2nd most played game of all time by concurrent players on Steam. On the 25th of February, the Steam Deck launched to the world, meaning those who got in within the first 10 seconds of its announcement will very likely have their units in the mail. Earlier in the month, every big name in the industry was sent their own copy to try out, strip down, and share their thoughts, and overall, the feedback has been very positive. In many ways this isn't surprising. The value proposition of having a portable gaming PC at an affordable price with the biggest games library in the world is a pretty insane concept, and when all Steam needed to do was stick the landing, it wouldn't be out of the question to see this become the highest selling piece of gaming hardware of all time. The Steam Deck is being touted as a Switch for gamers and has some pretty impressive specifications to boot. The unit features a 7-inch 1280 by 800 resolution, a 60Hz touchscreen, a custom AMD 4-core, 8-thread processor, 16GB of RAM, and a reported 8 hours of battery life. The Steam Deck also features all the standard buttons, triggers, and joysticks from a traditional controller, as well as 4 customizable back buttons and gyroscopes that you'll use for about 2 minutes before turning it off forever. As much as it's probably not fair to compare the Steam Deck to the Switch's 10-year-old hardware, the other features are still fair game, including Bluetooth support, the ability to plug into an external display, and being able to use a mouse and keyboard with the help of any third-party USB-C adapter. Steam has also partnered with iFixit to manufacture replacement parts for the device, meaning customers will be able to repair the device themselves, something that very few manufacturers have thus far been willing to do. Unsurprisingly, as a text-to-speech channel which talks about Titanfall, the intricate complexities of the Dubai royal family, and how chimps commit war crimes, we didn't get access to a Steam Deck before release, but viewers are free to watch the thousands of other sources who got one early in the mail. A 16-year-old boy in Russia, named Nikita, has been sentenced to 5 years for planning to blow up the Kremlin in Minecraft. The teenager and 2 of his friends have been put behind bars for charges of training for terrorist activities after they decided to construct a building resembling that of Russia's domestic security agency and planned to blow it up. Reports didn't mention whether the teenagers planned to craft TNT blocks or whether they were to use some form of creeper farm to pull off their dastardly plan, and we can now assume that this information is classified. 2 of the teens were cleared of criminal charges and handed reduced sentences for cooperating with investigations, while Nikita himself will be spending the next 5 years within a Siberian penal colony for his crimes. This was not the first time Nikita had landed himself in hot water with Russian authorities, previously spreading leaflets in support of a Russian anarchist and mathematician who was on trial for vandalism. According to investigators, the teens were also learning how to make improvised explosives, which they practiced detonating inside of abandoned buildings. As a result, the trio initially faced more severe charges of participating in a terrorist organization. However, these were unsurprisingly thrown out due to a total lack of evidence. During the trial, which was held behind closed doors, Nikita denied planning to blow anything up, saying, "For the last time in this court I want to say, I'm not a terrorist." The Russian teen was however absolutely steadfast in the face of 5 years prison time, as he would also say that he would serve his time "with a clear conscience and dignity." He would then need to be airlifted from the building after a doctor declared that his testicles were too massive to fit through the door. The arrest of Nikita is particularly unnerving on a personal level, as doing dumb shit on Minecraft and making sparkler bombs is the same shit I did at the same age. In fact, in July last year, I had to convince YouTube that we weren't promoting terrorist activity after we interviewed a member of Hamas for our Israel and Palestine video. Furthermore, on my 18th birthday, I jokingly attempted to change my legal name on the school computers, which got my parents a call from a government caseworker, who very politely informed them that I was now on a watch list. My point is that had I been born in a different part of the world, that could have been me, on the way to a Siberian penal colony, and not comfortably sitting here, writing about why Battlefield should have stuck to their standardized 4-class system. In any case, viewers who are concerned that they might be being watched might be interested in today's sponsor. As viewers are probably aware, privacy in the modern day is a very novel concept, and we've reached a time where the average website knows more about you than your own grandparents. In fact, you've probably signed up for a loyalty card and a few days later been spammed with ads from random companies. This is because there's a huge industry of data brokers buying and selling your information, and although you have the right to request it be deleted, it would likely take several hundred hours to do so, even if you knew where to look. This is where Incogni comes in. With Incogni, they'll contact thousands of these data brokers on your behalf and request your information be deleted without you ever having to lift a finger. Around a year ago, I had a conversation with an old friend about golf, and without ever searching for anything golf related or having any interest in the sport, I started getting spammed with emails about clubs, golf balls, and golf lessons in my area. If this sounds familiar, you're certainly not alone, but now more than ever is a great time to put it to an end. Signing up with the code on screen will give the first 100 viewers a 20% discount and will finally give you a way to take back your data once and for all. Incogni. Privacy without the bullshit. Meanwhile, Activision Blizzard games will be releasing on PlayStation into the foreseeable future. GTA 6 is officially confirmed to be in development, and Assassin's Creed Valhalla becomes the first Ubisoft game to make $1 billion. Lord help us. February wasn't exactly overflowing with news, but since there were roughly 6 billion new releases, we decided to recap a few of the biggest titles to hit the market. The first major release was for Dying Light 2, the parkour-based zombie game, which received generally solid reviews. Metacritic has the game at 77 as of time of writing, with a number of bugs plaguing the title since its release. I've personally put around 20 hours into the game since launch, and despite my own personal preferences when it comes to progression and the laughably bad story, it's been a lot of fun. Viewers on the fence might consider holding off for a few patches, some post-launch content, or just a drop in price, but overall, I think Metacritic is sitting just where it needs to be. Next up is Sifu, a kung fu game, with a unique take on replayability and progression, as your character will become older every time you fail. Much like a game like Dark Souls, there's more of a focus on the player getting better, as opposed to the character inherently becoming stronger, and it's to be expected that the punishing combat will likely appeal to many of the same masochistic players. I personally didn't play this one, but Nathan the gaming writer did, and his feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, going as far as to say it's a must-play game. Next up was Lost Ark, a Korean-developed, isometric MMORPG, which has taken the Asian market by storm over the past few years, but has only now been released to a Western audience. The developers must have done something right, as the game immediately broke the record for the second highest concurrent players on Steam, beaten only by PUBG, which is still nearly 3 times higher than any other game. Once again, I didn't get around to this title, but Nathan the gaming writer was more than happy to sing its praises, stating that it was unsurprisingly polished from already being out for the past 3 years. Although free to play, the general consensus was that players weren't pressured into spending real money, at least until hitting the end game grind. Nathan even went as far as to say that Lost Ark is better than any Diablo game which has so far been released, and suspects that this will be the title to which Diablo 4 will be most closely compared. Viewers who have a lot of time have Nathan's big old tick of approval. The last game was the PlayStation exclusive Horizon Forbidden West, which unfortunately none of us have had the pleasure to play. Admittedly, I was even offered an early copy before the game was released, but since I couldn't buy a PS5, even if I wanted one, I unfortunately had to turn it down. Reviews seem to be generally positive with this new entry to the series, as the game expands on the story while introducing new gameplay mechanics. However, some have described the game as feeling clunky in some areas. PlayStation owners can get their hands on Forbidden West right now, although I suspect PC players will have their turn eventually. Quite unfortunately, we needed to finalize the script before the review embargo for Elden Ring lifted, but I ask that you all shed a tear for Krusty the editor, who will be frantically putting the news together this month, while the rest of us are getting endlessly murdered with a smile on our face and a song in our heart. Viewers who want a decent review of Elden Ring can just watch Skill Up like a normal fucking person. Tell him Swag sent you. Those were pretty much all the big releases for February, of course excluding the Witch Queen expansion for Destiny 2, which as we all know, is more of a job than a game. Releases scheduled for March include Gran Turismo 7, Assassin's Creed Valhalla Dawn of Ragnarok, Ghostwire Tokyo, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin. Viewers who want to keep up with non-gaming happenings should hit the bell to be notified when our regular news goes live, because holy fucking shit, there's some big stories to cover this month. Until then, may your ping be low, and may RN Jesus forever smile upon you.